let's talk about compressed air a little bit here, and what I'm thinking. And this is frustrating because in my dream world, this is what goes in there. Now, this is also frustrating. Is that it took me 5 minutes to find this gosh darn thing on. I mean, look at, it's, how are you supposed to know, what this thing is? I mean, so the only reason I know about this is because I've been searching for years on what air compressor to do, and then I saw it in person on my Instagram cover photo for a long time was me hugging this thing. This to me seems like the perfect solution. This is called a Kaiser Air Station or Air Center. And this, you really only need the 5 horsepower version, SX5 Air Center, and it outputs 21 CFM, and it's a rotary screw compressor. But I'm probably a dozen people in deep now that know much more than I know. Most of them experts on compressed air. And every single one of them has told me you do not want to do a rotary screw compressor in your garage, in your personal garage. Unless you have 4 or 5 guys working there 7-8 hours a day, the thing is just not going to work. It's going to break. It's going to rust internally. You're going to have all kinds of issues. It's just it's not the right type of compressor for the solution. And then the reason why I want it doesn't make it whisper quiet. I would put this sucker right smack in the middle of the darn garage so I could see it, and look at it. It's not gonna cause any noise issues or anything like that. But it's gonna break, like guaranteed going to break. So I've even looked at options where you could create a sort of a bleeding system where it basically just dumps air into a bucket. Just so that it would have a longer duty cycle or be used longer throughout the day, but it's just not. I mean, that seems like such an idiotic thing to do. So rotary screw or screw compressors for our consumer grade garage, it's just not an option. It breaks my heart, and I've revisited this 15 times. And maybe some of you guys that know a bit more than I know, maybe you can help me head down a different path. Now, this is good news because this thing is like $9,000 or $8,000 or something like that. So that dream probably, obviously isn't the right choice. So my big bird yellow Kaiser air station or air center is just not. We'll just close that because it's not an option.
A little bit more about our options for a traditional reciprocating air compressor. I actually have this little guy here. So this is the one when my little one that I bought from an estate sale blew up. I bought this little Ingersoll Rand just to fill up tires and just to have temporarily until I figure this whole thing out. So you have, a traditional reciprocating or piston-driven air compressor, and I'm hoping that some of you guys that watch this video that have more experience with this can sort of help me out as I think through this. So I'm in the very early stages of heading down this path, and so a couple of things I think are important are. There's got to be a way to limit some of the noise, and I understand why people put these in another room, so that you don't have to hear the thing running. But I think that there are shrouds that you can put over top of these things to help eliminate some of the noise. I'm not sure. So like I said, this is my initial or beginning process of figuring out, which 2-stage or single-stage compressor which I'd choose. So Quincy is one I'm aware of. I like it because it's blue. Matches my general theme. Ingersoll Rand also appeals to me. I just think it's a cool company. I don't know why. Again, it just appeals to me. Maybe it's the very sort of engineering look or engineer-like look. Quincy appeals because, they have all these different white papers. They have a really great site. They have lots of good support. So I'm assuming that, and I haven't called them yet, but I'm assuming when I call and talk to them that they're going to be extremely helpful in helping me size and figure out, which compressor makes sense. Because, my ultimate goal is to create a solution for compressed air that is very similar to the pressure washing package, right? So we can have something like this where you have a few options you could choose, but we have a simple, clean, dry compressed air solution. My guess is that since we're talking about doing a piston driven, that the cost is not going to be nearly as high as as we're talking about the rotary screw, or even the self-contained rotary screw like the air stations, the air system that Kaiser has, that has the dryer and everything. But, one of the things I think is going to be important for us, crazies, us obsessed garage people, is that we're going to want really clean, really dry, filtered air. And so that's where I think a dryer is going to be important. If you guys recognize this, detailer guys, Larry Cosella has a Quincy in his garage, and then he has I think it's an AirTac dryer. So he has a big old AirTac drying system as well. Again, these are industrial grade, but this is the system that he has in his little garage. He has this giant, giant, I think 60 or 80 gallon. I don't know if his is a 2-stage or single stage, but he has that in his garage, and that's an awesome setup. It's just really big, really loud, and requires a lot of space. So we're I'm thinking through this. And if you guys remember my original discussion with Eastwood, Eastwood is making some progress. So this was August 25th. They made a post of their screw compressor. So this thing is headed toward production. Looks like they said it's going to be under $1,000, and it'll be around November. So this is going to be a scroll compressor, which is like a hybrid of a screw or piston. So much quieter. This is going to do 12 CFM at 90 psi, which I think is all that we really need. I mean, the most intensive tools I'm going to be using will be the Rupes 75 air tool. Let's see if we can pull that up really quickly. This thing is, if you've never used one of these, it's awesome. Yeah, the pneumatic air tool thing. This thing is awesome. I use this. I ended up using this the whole time I was at Esoteric. But this, these things require some serious air. They suck through some air. So I got to do a little more research on what these require. But I want some overhead. But again, as I learn more about compressed air systems, you need to size it properly. If you go too big, and my tendency in life is to overbuy, buy it so that it's way 4 or 5 steps above my abilities or what I'm going to use it for. But with an air compressor, as I learn more and more, that's just not something you want to do, not something you want to mess with. So I really still think that this little Eastwood scroll thing, Eastwood, I don't think really fits the MO of the Obsessed Garage brand. I don't think this is going to be really high end. I mean, they're hitting a price target where, generally we're looking for uncompromised performance, but this just might be it, guys. I mean, this might fit what we're looking to accomplish, and that, again, I could put a package together with a Prevost hose reel and some air tools and have a really viable solution to blow out your pads, fill up your tires, break your lug nuts loose, maybe even paint something if you wanted to paint, and then run the 75 pneumatic, which I think is what we're all going to be looking for. The key is figuring out drying and air filtration and how to structure that. And of course, every garage is going to be different, but if I'm going to be doing consulting like I am in Bob's garage, I want to figure this out. It's fascinating to me. It's really interesting to me. This is what keeps me motivated, is to look for cool stuff like this. So I'm going to spend a lot of time at SEMA in a month and a half, talking with different companies and really starting to get a feel on how this stuff works. And so my guess is that we're probably only going to need single stage compressor. So from my limited knowledge, a single stage compressor, there's still a dual piston design. I believe the pistons are equal on a single stage, and basically it compresses the air and puts it in the tank. Whereas a two stage will compress the air twice, and the pistons are slightly different sized. And so you have the air that's compressed, and then it's cooled, and then it's compressed again, and then it's stored in the tank. So you have higher pressure capabilities, higher CFM output. But again, for most of us, these single stage pressure, notice Quincy, again, they give such great information. You can get, pressures of 110 to 135 PSI, which is, what we're going to need in most cases. Again, I haven't done a lot of research on the tools that I want yet. And so I keep saying, I want, this, I'm using Bob's Garage as a case study for me figuring this out. And so really, forgive me, this ultimately comes back to my garage, right? What is it going to have in it? And I think this has been the theme of my life in general, is that whatever I want, probably other people want too. And so I'm just continuing to chase that. That's the MO of my whole existence, is if I'm interested in it, chances are other people are interested in it. And so if I can chase information that maybe these other people don't have the ability to chase, or don't have the time, or don't have the energy, or just don't care to chase, but would like to have a solution like I would have, why not use this unique obsessive compulsiveness to chase this stuff? And so that's what I'm doing. So using it for good rather than evil. At least that's the way I like to look at it. So again, a two stage is going to deliver higher pressure capabilities. So a single stage, so we would do something like the Quincy 16160, 3.5 horsepower. It's stationary. It can do up to 135 psi, 12.4 CFM, and then you'd have to do you have to do a direct, individual circuit for it, and you have a 60-gallon tank. But man, I think these things look great. There's form and there's function, and function is first, but form is important too. But there's all these other cool companies out there. I just have to keep digging. Bogue compressors looks super cool. I haven't done a whole lot of research, but I think these guys are kind of like the Krenzla of compressed air systems. I'm not sure how this company works, but something to think about. How we would do something to which company I'm going to choose. So that's going to require some effort, because it's not like I can just buy a bunch of air compressors and I guess I could, but buy a bunch of really large, heavy air compressors and test them like I have something simple like a spray gun. It's not quite that easy. So let's talk a little bit about getting the air to where it needs to get to, right? So we have Ingersoll Rand, we have Quincy, we have all these great, I'm sure you guys are going to throw in 100 other companies that I didn't share here, but we'll get there. I'm working on it. So this company here, I'm almost certain this is my fittings company, the one that I'm just so interested in this company and what they offer. And they finally have updated their website to make it so that it's somewhat user friendly. It's still really complicated, but the beauty of Prevost, and if you follow me on Instagram, you've seen me post some pictures of me attempting to figure out which hose works the best. And compressed air is so funky. Guys in California have a different standard than the guys in New Jersey, right? This is where it gets tricky. I've spent a bit more time on figuring out fittings than I have on the actual air compressors, and so this is so funky how in different areas of the world you have these different standards. And so you have the British standard,
You have high flow standard, which they call green. You have the ISO industrial standard, which is blue, which is what we use on the East Coast. You have RO standard, you have TrueFlate, and then you have the ISO 61, whatever that is, 615C. So this TrueFlate is the body shop and sort of the standard that they use on the West Coast, and this is what they use on the East Coast, and this is what they use in the UK, and this is what they use in Europe. And so you have all these different types of connections. And notice the quick disconnects are different sized. So this is where it gets tricky. So I think I'm going to adopt the industrial standard. All right, so that'll be the I think it's, I forget what they call it. It's ISO something or other, which is a 1/4 inch sized inlet. And so that'll be the standard that we'll adopt, and then basically you buy all these fittings to work. And this is where it's going to get tricky in that figuring out, where do I put the actual compressor? My original intent was to make this wall right here where we removed the office, was to make this our sort of wall of compressed air, and put the dryer, put the rotary screw, put all of the the desiccant and the air filtration on the wall, and then have the piping run up the wall and then run throughout and make it look really nice, neat, and clean. But I need to figure out what are we going to do with the fact that the compressor makes a crap ton of noise. And so, maybe we put it in the office here and make a little display area there. That way we can close the door and, kind of close the sound in. Or maybe we leave the office over here, or just build a little closet to put the air compressor in. That's what I'm leaning toward, that if this office comes out, then we build a closet, and then that's the place where we'll put our piston-driven air compressor, right? And so these Prevost fittings, they're just awesome. The Prevost S1 is what we would use. In most cases, we're going to be using some sort of tapered NPT threaded, National Pipe threaded option. This is something I'm working with Prevost to figure out a system. And so what we'll end up doing most likely is I'm going to be fitting these double wall manifolds throughout the garage, right? So we'll put this thing as a built-in drain. There's your inlet for our piping, and so this and these have all of our again ISIO 6, our industrial standard. This has a 3/4 inch inlet, which my guess is we could probably run 3/4 inch line throughout and be fine. That's another thing I need to figure out, sizing of the piping, whether it needs to be 1 inch or something bigger. So these, I'm thinking we'll take these and position them in, so let's go back to our garage design. So we would put one here next to where the lift is going to go. We'd put one on this wall. We'd put one, kind of throughout. So I'd probably do one. I'm just gonna pretend like this oil drum here is where we're gonna put our outlets, right? So we put an outlet here. We put an outlet here next to where our washing area is gonna be. We'll put an outlet, symmetrically on this wall. We'll put one back here, and we'll put one here, right? So we just have them strategically placed throughout this side of the garage, and then we will probably do, one here, one here, and then a couple on, on this wall here as well, right? So, and then maybe one across the back wall. I don't know that we'll need that much. So that's the thought process on, we would put these dual outlets. So we would put these throughout just for future proofing. And I don't think these aren't all that costly. Maybe I think they're like $75 or something like that. So they're not crazy expensive. But we'll put these on the wall, but then we'll also do hose reels. Now I need to figure out, and I had initial conversations with Prevost, but we do something like these hose reels mounted in a couple of different spots throughout. Notice it has the S1 connection on it.
and then you bring in a, like a hose line. I would set up these hose reels in a couple of different locations, right? And again, I don't know if this is the exact one that we choose. I need to, talk to Prevost and maybe get a couple of them and test them out. But we would mount several of them, and I haven't talked about the lift yet. But I would most likely mount a couple on the ceiling. So I'd probably put one here and here, and then behind the lift area here and here. Just think of those as being symmetrical. And then, and then possibly one, on the wall next to this. And so the way I could reach all of these areas. But then again, I have the, and this might be overkill here, but I have the wall outlets in case I needed to just grab a hose and connect. And I played, and I've actually ordered several different hoses already. You have an Airca rubber hose, you have this the Shearflex hose and the Stowflex hose. And so the Stowflex is the non-static, really high end. I think the Shearflex is my favorite. This looks like rubber, but it's not rubber. It's kind of like a rubberized plastic. And so they are these are going to be our options on hoses. And I think that what we would have is you'd have a couple of these just sort of hanging somewhere nice and neatly, or probably actually in one of the drawers of the cabinet, with that was pre-terminated, that is essentially ready to go, so that you could go grab it, and then in case you were doing something that was off the wall or odd that you didn't want on the hose reel, you could connect it up to any of these ports or any of these connections, throughout. So we'd also probably put a hose reel here and here. He already has one, and maybe one here. So you'd have hose reels in strategically placed, but then you'd also have the ability to just grab a short little, either a pigtail or a short, just grab a standalone hose and connect it so that you're covered from all angles. So you could blow off a car, blow the dust off a car if you wanted to. You could connect up an air tool if you wanted to. And again, my guess is Bob's going to tell me, look, this is a little bit overkill. We don't think we need this much. But that's my initial thought on how you do this, because it's easy to put these on the wall, but then we have to get the air there, right? So the air has to be piped, and then when you run long runs, a lot of times you're going to need to treat that air. I was talking to him about this. This is where I was having trouble. This isn't the S1 connection. This is their original air connection, which I want the high end option. He said the picture's just a little dated, so hopefully we can get to the point to where I'm stocking these hoses, and you can sort of buy one if you wanted just a standalone hose. So I'm working toward having that as an option for Prevost. So anyway, back to the design of this. I mean, that was my thought process, is that we would have several hoses and have all these amazing tools. I mean, so you would do like the S1 blowguns are awesome, or even some of their their non-S1s, which we have to scroll through here, I think. Yeah, so some of these these different, just regular, I have some of these, they're awesome. So then we would figure out either the Chicago Pneumatic or Ingersoll Rand, or you'll figure out what tool provider we would start to use as well. So anyway, these are all the thought processes that are going through my head. Oh, let's talk about our piping as well. So I'm most likely going to use Prevost as our piping system. There's Rapid Air, Kaiser has their own system, but you have all these different types of pipings. And so we would do the Prevost aluminum pipe, which is really cool. I've actually seen this and held this in person at SEMA last year. And then you have all their different unions, all their different connection points, which allow us to, connect up all of our, and put, valves in place without having to do any kind of crazy taping and welding. And so I like this solution. I know some of you guys would suggest that you do, copper piping, but I just think that this aluminum option is really slick. And I don't know about you, but I wouldn't mind seeing this on the wall if it's done neatly and cleanly. So I don't know how many feet. We're probably 300, 400, 500 feet of piping in order to get it to where we needed to get to. And then I think they also sell a pipe bender and pipe cutter and all of that stuff. So I'm going to work with Prevost in designing this, and once I have the design, I'll come back to you guys and share with you what it looks like. So that's where I'm at with compressed air. As you can see, I have a long way to go. What we might do is get the stuff accomplished. Again, like I said, I'm working on getting the cabinet design back. Once I get that back, then I'll make the video talking about cabinets specifically, and we'll, again, we'll keep working through the different products. But compressed air is one of those things that I like to think I'm now crawling. I'd like to get to the point where I'm running sprints. As far as how much information that it's in my head that is then I can provide and create organized systems to sort of teach people what you need and what you don't. And then hopefully curate some products like Prevost that make sense, these obscure companies that I'm so fond of. So anyway, thanks for watching this one, and stay tuned for more design videos coming. What happens when the force pulls you back, your foot naturally comes off the gas. You have to keep your foot to the floor, foot to the floor.
Dialed in.